Alright, before we get into, I want to show what I have and what you might need for the job. So, paper towels, latex gloves, number 5 Allen key, fuel pump, and brake cleaner, temperature tester. Since I'm doing it in the garage, I have a flashlight, I have a gasket for the pan, and I have the filter. They come together right there. And I have the oil. This is what I'm going to be using, and I have 5 quarts. You may not need 5 quarts, but I have just extra just in case, because service fill, I think it's about like 3.5 liters, so that's why I have a little bit of it extra. And since I don't have a jack, I'm not professionally doing it in the shop, so this is what I'm going to be dealing with. I have my jack, and the surface I'm going to be working on is level. So before you get even to this point, make sure that bolt, the drain plug in your case, is not stuck as well. So maybe it's a good idea to order one online. In my case, yes, it was stuck, and I had no choice but go to the dealership and pay $35 just for the drain plug. So if you want to get it online, it should cost you about like $6-7. But make sure you order one with washer as well, because you will be replacing the washer and the plug when you are done basically with the process. So just wanted to mention before I dive into what I'm doing here. So again, in my case, yes, it was stuck. I tried to hit it. So basically, if you have a chisel or something like that, you can use that to loosen that bolt. So in my case, it did take some time because my car was not raised too high, right? So it's only like 1 foot. I jacked up as much as I could and worked on the ground. So first I'm gonna drain the plug. First I'm gonna remove that plug and drain the oil, and when it stops, there is an oil leveler. Okay, so that's when I'm gonna use that Allen key number 5 to put it in there and just remove it and let the rest of the oil from that pan come out. And when it stops, when oil stops coming out, I'm gonna put it right back in. Okay, so I'm gonna put it right back in, and I'm gonna put the even drain plug back in, but I'm not gonna tighten it as much, but I'll just make sure that I don't have a hole when I am going to be removing the oil pan. The oil just doesn't spill over from there. So the next step, we're gonna need a 10 millimeter socket to remove all the bolts around the oil pan. I think there are 8 of them. I'm gonna remove the 7, and I'm gonna leave 1 in the front side of the car, so I can remove that one manually while I'm holding the oil pan, because there's still oil in there, and I'm gonna be just slowly dropping the oil pan so that all that oil doesn't spill. And I will do the last one that I have left with my basically screwdriver, or just loosen up a little bit, just have that on, don't remove them all completely, and then just slowly drop the pan. So you might need here a flathead screwdriver because the gasket might be stuck in there, but just use a flathead screwdriver to loosen it up. And then you can see I'm removing the last one and then dropping the oil pan, and just I'm gonna keep this oil in there because I don't have any other place to get rid of this oil, but I'm gonna be putting all the oil that comes out of this pan into one can, so I can have an idea how much oil is getting out of this process, just so when I do the leveling, I have an idea how much I'm putting in and how much taking out. So this is the oil pan, and you can see there's a filter which has identical 10 millimeter socket, so I'm gonna be removing the filter as well. And then once I'm done with the filter, I'm gonna drop the jack, so the rest of the oil comes out of the car, because one side of the car is jacked right now, and I'm working only with one side. So driver's side, that's where I'm lifting it up, and I'm just working from the corner. So I drop it and let most of the fluid come out. So now I'm gonna just put the new filter back in there. At this point, yes, I have raised the car now, so it doesn't matter at this point, because the only time I'm gonna need the car to be leveled is when I'm gonna be leveling the fluid. So I have jacked it back up there, so putting this filter in there, and you're not gonna mess it up actually. So it's just the pattern of those 3 bolts that go in. I mean, there's no way you're gonna mess it up. So first I'm just gonna hand tighten them, and then again I'm not doing it to like torque specs. I'm just making sure they're snug, and it's not I mean, it's not super tight either. So I'm just using, I have done it a few times in different cars, V6 cars like Toyota Camry and Lexus, and I'm not using torque specs for anything that I'm doing. So if you want, you can just quickly look it up. It's not a big problem if you have that torque tool, but I have just a normal wrench. So again, this is just super DIY project where I have limited tools and I'm working with what I have. Okay, so I'm gonna be again collecting all that oil into one can. So this is a little bit of oil from the oil pan, and you can see, yeah, I don't even have a funnel. I use the water bottle, just cut it off, use it as a funnel. You can do that too. So there are 2 magnets in this oil pan. So I'm gonna remove them first, wipe it off, and see like visually if there's any metal partials in there. But if there's a little bit, that's okay. That's the goal of this of these 2 magnets. So, and once you clean it, you will see where they go. Okay, so, and then I'm gonna remove the gasket around this pan using this brake cleaner to clean up the pan. Yes, I'm fast forwarding it, but it's pretty quick. So actually, if you just put it one side up and just clean up both all around, actually, not only inside, edges, everywhere, so you don't want any dirt, because that gasket that we're gonna put on top, it's gonna basically sit in this pan. Okay, and I'm using that little bit of an oil from the new oil that we're gonna be filling up. So, and then just touching up inside and outside, so it just sits in there smooth. And you can see I'm putting the gasket first, and then it has all of those bunch of 8, I think, washers that you can put, and you can play with the washer side. Okay, if it doesn't align, that's okay, you can just move it slightly, but make sure that you put it initially level here before you put it up to the basically transmission, and try to mount it there and try to find those holes. But if you align it here perfectly, it will just go in nicely. Okay, so that's what I'm doing, and you can see the magnets, they just go into those spots where it has little spots where it doesn't move anywhere, and it just sits in the corner. So you can see. And when I'm done with this process, I'm gonna put the oil pan up there, and then I'm gonna take out that oil that came out, and it was super dirty. This car has 165,000 miles, and I believe this is the first time that oil is being changed. Normally you have to change it, I believe, like 50-60,000 miles, every 50-60,000 miles, maybe even less, maybe even 30,000 miles. But the only reason why I'm doing it is I have had cars that had this amount of mileage, and it just, transmission went out purely because of the bad oil, not because anything else, but purely oil has never been changed. And I understand where a lot of people have these cars and dealership asks crazy amount of money. In my case, local shop gave me around $875 to do this process. So the prices, I wanted to include all the prices, but I'm gonna give you the rough estimate how much I spent for everything. I think I spent around like $135, including all those like little tools that I bought to get this job done. So $130, $140 for for all the parts that I needed to do this whole thing. So you can see I'm using that microfiber towel to wipe off around the edges where this gasket of the oil pan will be sitting, and then attaching in a cross pattern 2 bolts. And again, those 8 bolts that came out of this oil pan were super oily and dirty as well, so I used the brake cleaner to clean up these bolts as well. So if you have to clean them, you can use brake cleaner, clean them, and then just mount 2 sides, and then you can put the rest and then tighten it. And again, I don't have the torque specs for these bolts, okay? So I'm just putting up the oil pan just so I can remove that old oil and put it in there. And again, I'm hand tightening first. I'm going through all around, and then I'm gonna use my wrench to tighten all these 8 bolts. Okay, so in my case, the oil that came out of this transmission was around 3.5 quarts. So, and I put maybe a little bit more. After leveling, I realized that I put a little bit more, but that's okay because I did level. So here's the process now. So you're gonna make sure that you have your bolt ready, new one with the washer, and make sure you put it right way, okay? And in my case, I bought this oil pump from Harbor Freight, which is, I made it work, okay? It was not the best one. It didn't have a connector that could go into the oil pan. It touched, and then I could pump it myself. No, I had to hold it myself with tight against the hole, and somebody helped me just to pump this oil in there. And again, you can see there are little spills. That's totally fine. I put in there 5 quarts of oil because I knew that most of the old oil would mix up, and it would come out in the process of leveling. So you can see I'm basically putting the last bit of transmission oil that I had, and then I'm gonna put this drain plug back in there quickly, and then I'm not gonna tighten it too tight, okay, because I'm gonna be opening it again to get rid of most of the fluid in the process of leveling. So I just hand tightened it, and it's good enough for me. And removing the jack, and then I'm gonna be starting the car, and I want to say maybe like 3 minutes or so. Car is gonna, so basically oil needs to reach 105 Fahrenheit and 41 or so, 42 Celsius temperature, which is operating temperature, I believe, for the transmission fluid. And then I would be opening that drain plug again to get rid of the extra oil that I have inside of the transmission. But before that, after starting the car, within that 2-3 minute time that I have until that temperature goes up, you can see I'm going through every single basically position about like 3, 4, 5 seconds, and trying to get that oil go through the torque converter and mix up at the same time. So after that, we are going to be measuring the temperature. That's what I'm using, and it's good enough for me. 105, 107. I'm gonna remove the drain plug, get rid of that extra that I put in, and it's gonna basically flow still for quite some time in my case. But what I'm waiting for, and what you are waiting for, is basically a little bit of a trickle, and also kind of like a bubbly flow, where you need to just put the plug back in and call it a level. Okay, if the transmission fluid gets too hot, at that point you have to stop everything, put the plug back in, let the fluid get cold again, and then do the whole process of leveling again, because if fluid gets too hot, I mean, it expands, right? You may not get that leveling point right. So in my case, I did measure whatever came out of the pan and just basically compared to what I got out of this car. So initially I was telling 3.5 quarts, right? So I put about the same, a little bit more, 3.5 or 3.6 or something like that. I think by the textbook, I think it's 3.2 or something like that, 3.2 liters or 3.2 quarts of service fill, I think, when you do this process. But different cars, it could be different, right? But now this is it. I'm gonna call it success. I hope it was helpful for somebody. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next DIY project.